Okay, Namaskar bachcho. Welcome to the virtual class. So far in the previous episode, seen about the third and the fourth unit up to the budget chapter. So now, before commencing this session, I would like to display the changes which is being done by the CBSE in response to the pandemic situation of COVID-19. They have reduced our syllabus. So students, note down the portion removed from our syllabus for this year, so which should be helpful for you. Okay, in our class 12 syllabus, from the microeconomics, they have deleted the unit 2, that is money and banking, where the topics related are control of credit through bank rates, CRR, SLR, repo rate and the reserve repo rate. Then the open market operation and the margin requirements. These concepts have been deleted from the money and banking chapter, and from the fifth unit, that is balance of payment. In that chapter, the balance of payment deficit, meaning determination of exchange rate in a free market. So these portions from macroeconomics have been deleted for this year, and look at the portions related from the Indian economic development. It is the part B of our syllabus. So here from unit 7, that is the current challenges facing Indian economy. From this unit, the topics are growth of education sectors in India, alternate farming and the organic farming, and in infrastructure part, the energy. So these topics have been deleted this year so that burden can be reduced from you people, such that you can score well in the coming examination after this end of the session. Okay students, now in this episode, once again we will be looking at the second unit of our macroeconomics, that is the national income and the related aggregates. So from this chapter, we will study about the meaning of national income and the related aggregates of our national income. And moving ahead, after that we will study about the methods of calculating the national income. So before starting the calculation of national income, we need to see the concept, the national income concept and the aggregate values. So first of all, we will look at the meaning of national income. So what do you mean by national income? So national income is the sum total of factor incomes earned by a normal resident of a country during the period of an accounting year. बच्चों, राष्ट्रीय आय वह आय होती है जहाँ पे सामान्य नागरिकों के द्वारा एक वित्तीय वर्ष के अंतर्गत जितने भी कारक आय हैं, इन कारक आय के जो योग होती हैं, इन्हें हम राष्ट्रीय आय कहते हैं. That means what? It includes the incomes earned by all the factors of production in the economy. So when we study about the meaning of national income, here you can see two important concepts. What are they? They are the factor income and the normal resident of a country. So when I said about the meaning and the definition of this national income, so at that what I told you that it is the sum total of factor income. So what do you mean by factor income? So factor incomes are what? They are the incomes earned by all the factors of production. So what is factor of production? Factors of production are that factors which are responsible for the production of goods and services in the economy. So by combining all these factors only, we can produce a good or we can render a service. So the income which is being earned by these factors are included in the calculation of national income. And one more thing I told you that is the sum total of factor income earned by normal resident of a country. So who is a normal resident? So these concepts, the factor income concept and the normal resident concept, it will be studied in this episode in a detailed manner, because from these concepts you will be getting some 1 mark question and the very short answer questions, where the concept should be studied very clearly, such that you will be able to answer all the questions related with these two concepts, that is factor income and the normal resident of a country. So first of all, we study about the factor income. So what do you mean by factor income? Before studying about the factor income, the income can be classified. The income which is being earned in an economy, it can be classified as the factor income or the factor payment, and the next one is what? This transfer income or transfer payments. So here what I told you that income, the income of the economy can be classified as the factor income and the transfer income. So factor income, as it is the income earned by all the factors of production. So why I am telling this as a factor payment? As you know that we have two basic sectors in the economy, that is the household sector and the producer sector. So when you study about the two sector economy, the closed economy, where two sectors are there, that is the household sector and the producer sector. These household sectors are the owners of all the factors of production. In view of the household sector, when you take about the incomes of all these factors, that time the income received by these factors can be said to be the factor income. And when we view from the production sector, that is from the producer sector, at that time we can say that these are the payments made to the factors of production by the producers. So at that time it becomes a payment. So when the factors gets the income from the producers, that can be said to be the factor income. And at the same time, the same income which is being paid through the production sector to the household sector, that time we can term as the factor payment. But both the things are same only. So it can be said to be a factor income or factor payment. So when I am talking about the factor income, it is being viewed from the household sector. When I am talking about the factor payment, it can be said to be the payment made by the producer sector to all the factors of production. Now come to the next, transfer income. What do you mean by transfer income or the transfer payment? So these are the income, the unilateral incomes which is being received from someone or some country without expecting anything in return. That means we are making the payment or we are receiving the payment, but in return we are not exchanging any kind of goods and services on that a payment or income. तो बच्चों, कारक आय और हस्तांतरित आय, तो जो मैंने जैसे ही बताया, कारक आय वह आय होती है जो कारक उत्पादन के क्षेत्र में सम्मिलित रहती है। कहने का क्या होता है कि जितने भी कारकों के द्वारा वस्तुओं सेवाओं की जो प्रक्रिया है, इनमें जो सम्मिलित रहते हैं, इनको उन वस्तुओं सेवाओं के उत्पादन के बदले में इनको जो आय प्राप्त होती है, जिसे हम कारक आय कहते हैं। साथ ही साथ मैंने बताया हस्तांतरित आय या हस्तांतरित भुगतान। तो हस्तांतरित आय वह आय होती है जो एक व्यक्ति या एक अर्थव्यवस्था के द्वारा किसी अन्य देश के अन्य व्यक्ति को जब ये भुगतान की जाती है, तब इन भुगतान के बदले या इन आय के बदले में हम किसी तरह की वस्तुओं एवं सेवाओं का आदान प्रदान नहीं करते हैं, क्योंकि यह भुगतान या फिर ये जो आय होती है वो एक तरफा होती है, जहाँ पे हम भुगतान करते हैं या फिर उनसे हम आय के रूप में प्रदान करते हैं। सो इन दैट कंडीशन we will not include the value of transfer incomes in the calculation of national income, because the national income will calculate only those incomes which are being earned through the way of production of goods and services. That is being called as what? The economic activity. So in the first unit, so in the first chapter you have studied about the economic activity. So what do you mean by economic activity? आर्थिक क्रिया क्या होती है? आर्थिक क्रिया वह क्रिया होती है जिनके द्वारा किसी वस्तुओं सेवाओं की उत्पादन या निर्माण किया जाता है। That means by the way of production of goods and services, the factors get the income, and that income will only be included in the calculation of national income in the country. So we will exclude the value of transfer income and the transfer payments in the calculation of national income in a country. So this is what the classification of income we have seen here. Now we will study about the factor incomes, as we are not going to include the value of transfer incomes. So always keep in mind that while calculating the value of national income, we will avoid the value of transfer incomes given in the questions. Now we will study about the factor incomes in detail. Here we will study about the factor income. So I told you that factored incomes are the income of the factors of production in the production process. So when we classify these factor incomes can be further classified into 4 types or 4 factors. What are they? So it can be said to be, first we will look at the factors of production. So these factors of production are land, labor, capital and the entrepreneurship. So when these factors are combined together, they produce the goods and services in the economy. When they are rendering these services to the production unit or to the producers, so in return these factors of production are being paid in return. So how they are paid? They are paid in the form of land will get the rent, labor will get the compensation of employees, capital which are utilized in the production of goods and services, it will get in return as interest, and the entrepreneurial skill which is being utilized by the producer or the production unit will be paid as the profit. So we got the 4 factors of income. They are rent, compensation of employees, interest and the profit. तो बच्चों मैंने जैसे बताया कि जो हमारे कारक आय हैं, इन कारक आय के बारे में जब हम अध्ययन करेंगे तो हम ये देखेंगे कि उत्पादन के क्षेत्र में उपयोग होने वाले जितने भी कारक हैं, इन कारकों के द्वारा अर्जित की गई आय को ही हम कारक आय कहते हैं। तो जैसे मैं उत्पादन के कारक कहता हूं, तो उत्पादन कारक क्या क्या होते हैं? तो 4 प्रकार के उत्पादन के कारक होते हैं। यह कारक कौन कौन सा है? जमीन, भूमि, फिर लेबर जिसे हम श्रमिक कहते हैं, देन हमारी पूंजी, कैपिटल एंड एट लास्ट, और आखिर में जो उद्यमी जिसे हम एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप कहते हैं। सो इन चारों कारक के द्वारा अर्जित की गई आय को ही हम कारक आय कहते हैं। तो बच्चों इन कारकों के द्वारा ही वस्तुओं सेवाओं की जो उत्पादन है ये संभव होती है। सो हियर द रेंट इज बीइंग रिसीव्ड बाय द हाउस होल्ड फ्रॉम द प्रोडक्शन यूनिट and the compensation of employees have been received by these household sector for rendering their services as employees to the production unit. And when the interest, that is the capital which are being utilized by these production units, are being paid in return in the form of interest. And at last, for using the entrepreneurial skill of these entrepreneurs in the production process or by the production units, will be paid in the form of profit. So these are the factors of income which are included in the calculation of national income of a country. So now we will see about the transfer incomes. So I told you earlier that transfer incomes are what? They are the unilateral payments or unilateral incomes. वह वैसी भुगतान या वैसी आय होती है, स्थानांतरित आय, जो एक तरफा होता है। इन्हीं कारणों से इन स्थानांतरित आय को मैंने वैसे बताया कि हमारी जो राष्ट्रीय आय की गणना है, इसकी गणना में इनके मूल्य को हम शामिल नहीं करते हैं। तो ऐसे कौन कौन से स्थानांतरित आय है या फिर स्थानांतरित भुगतान है, चलिए देखते हैं हम। जैसे कि चैरिटी, डोनेशंस, और इसके अलावा जितने भी आपदा के वक्त और किसी भी तरह की जैसी मेडिकल इमरजेंसी, जैसे अब हम कोविड के पेंडेमिक सिचुएशन है हमारे देश में सिर्फ नहीं बल्कि विश्व भर में, तो यहाँ पे काफ़ी सारे देश एक दूसरे को सेवा के ज़रिए या किसी अन्य वस्तु के ज़रिए, जैसे हमने अमेरिका को काफ़ी मात्रा में दवाइयाँ उपलब्ध कराई, ये जो जितने भी हस्तांतरण होती हैं एक देश से दूसरे देश के बीच में, वस्तुओं के रूप में या फिर सेवाओं के रूप में या फिर किसी तरह की आय या धन के रूप में, इनको हम स्थानांतरित आय या स्थानांतरित भुगतान कहते हैं। तो बच्चों ये था फैक्टर इनकम और ट्रांसफर इनकम के बारे में। ओके स्टूडेंट्स, नाउ वी विल स्टडी अबाउट द मीनिंग ऑफ नॉर्मल रेसिडेंट ऑफ ए कंट्री। As when we studied about the meaning of national income, as I told you that it is sum total of factor incomes earned by the normal resident of a country. So who are normal resident of a country? सामान्य निवासी, एक देश का सामान्य निवासी कौन होता है? So listen it carefully. You need to understand who are said to be the normal resident of a country. So a person who ordinarily resides in a country and whose center of economic interest lies in that country can be said to be the normal resident. सामान्य निवासी वह निवासी होता है जो सामान्य रूप से उस देश में रहता हो और उसकी जो आर्थिक रुचि है वह रुचि भी उस देश पर निर्भर हो। तो बच्चों यहाँ पे हम देखेंगे कि फिर हम दो चीज़ें देख रहे हैं यहाँ पे, एज ए टोल्ड दैट ऑर्डिनरली रिसाइड्स इन अ कंट्री और द इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट, ये दो चीज़ क्या होती हैं? व्हेन आई एम सेइंग दैट ही इज ऑर्डिनरली रिसाइडिंग इन दैट कंट्री, दैट मीन्स he or she is residing in that country for more than 1 year. He may be a citizen or he may be a non-citizen of that country. तो यहाँ पे हम नागरिकता जो होती है उन पर नहीं जाएंगे, सिर्फ हम ये देखेंगे कि जो व्यक्ति उस देश में रह रहा है वो कितने वक्त से रह रहा है। वो अगर वो व्यक्ति 1 साल से अधिक समय से उस देश में रह रहा है तो उसे हम सामान्य निवासी कह सकते हैं। साथ ही साथ मैंने एक और चीज़ बताई यहाँ पे कि सामान्य निवासी होने का अर्थ है कि वह 1 साल तो रहना है उस देश में और साथ ही साथ उनकी जो इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट, जो उनकी आर्थिक रुचि जो होती है वो भी उस कंट्री पर होनी चाहिए। कहने का अर्थ क्या है? व्हेन ही कंडक्ट्स हिज इकोनॉमिक ट्रांजैक्शंस लाइक प्रोडक्शन, कंजप्शन और इन्वेस्टमेंट इन दैट कंट्री, at that time we can say that he is having center of interest is lying in that country. So in this way we can very easily understand the meaning of normal resident. I told you that to become a normal resident of a country, that person need to live or he need to stay in that country for more than 1 year, and not only for 1 year, along with that his economic interest should be lies in that country. At that time we can say that he can be considered to be a normal resident of a country, जिन्हें हम उस देश का सामान्य निवासी माना जा सकता है। तो बच्चों जो मैंने आज तभी बताया आप लोगों को, इसके आधार पर अब हम ये देखेंगे कि सामान्य निवासी कौन कौन होते हैं। जैसे मैंने बताया कि अगर सामान्य निवासी कहना है तो उस व्यक्ति को उस देश का नागरिक होना ज़रूरी नहीं है। जो गैर नागरिक है उसे भी हम उस देश का सामान्य निवासी मानेंगे। कब मानेंगे? चलिए देखते हैं हम। सो नाउ वी विल लुक एट some observations regarding the normal resident of a country. First one, it includes both individual as well as institutions. तो कहने का क्या है कि सामान्य निवासी सिर्फ एक व्यक्ति नहीं होता है, व्यक्ति के साथ साथ किसी संस्था को भी हम नॉर्मल रेसिडेंट मान सकते हैं। जैसे कि संस्थाएं कहने का होता है, जैसे कि हमारे देश में काफ़ी सारे मल्टीनेशनल कंपनीज हैं, इनकी जो दफ्तरें हैं, इनकी जो इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, इनकी जो संस्थाएं हमारे देश में हैं, इन्हें भी हम एक नॉर्मल रेजिडेंट माना जा सकता है। तो कहने का क्या है कि अगर नॉर्मल रेजिडेंट जब कहते हैं सिर्फ किसी व्यक्ति को नहीं दर्शाता है बल्कि किसी संस्था को भी हम नॉर्मल रेजिडेंट कह सकते हैं अगर वह हमारे देश में 1 साल से अधिक समय सीमा तक वो कार्यरत है या फिर उनकी जो इकोनॉमिक या आर्थिक रुचि है हमारे देश में है। दूसरा, अदर सिटीजन्स लिविंग इन अ कंट्री, सिर्फ उस देश की नागरिक सामान्य निवासी नहीं होता है बल्कि दी अदर सिटीजन्स, दो सिटीजन्स हु बिलोंग टू सम अदर कंट्री, दे कैन ऑल्सो बी ट्रीटेड एज दी नॉर्मल रेसिडेंट ऑफ ए कंट्री, only with 2 conditions. What are the 2 conditions? Keep in mind, that is the one thing, he need to live for more than 1 year. The other thing is what? His economic interest should lie in our country. And apart from this, Indians working in the international organizations, like as I told you that IMF, WHO, like all these international organizations which are being set up in our country, they can also be considered to be a normal resident of a country. Now we will see who are the persons are not treated as normal resident. So apart from these, we will see the list of those persons who are not being treated as the normal resident. First one, the foreign visitors on treatment, holidays, studies, sports and the conferences. So those foreign people or the foreign visitors, the foreign citizens who make visit to our country for the purpose of getting the treatment. Even we have a good tourism in our country, so those tourists who visit our country for tourism purpose, and along with that many universities and institutions are there in our country which provides the education to these foreign students. So these people will not be treated as the normal resident. Why? Because these people make visit to a country not in the purpose of doing any economic activity only for the purpose of the other activity. Next, the crew members of foreign vessels and the commercial travelers are the seasonal workers in the country. So these are the people who work in a foreign vessel. The crew members of foreign vessel frequently make visit to a country, or the commercial travelers who do some trading with the country in the way of import and export, and the seasonal workers who are not engaged in the production process in our country throughout the year. Though they make frequent visit to a country, but they are not staying here for more than 1 year. And at last we can say about the foreigners of non-resident enterprises. There are many enterprises are working in our country where here the foreigners used to make the visit for the installation of machineries and the other equipments in that non-resident enterprises. So those foreign technicians are those foreign people who are making visit to these non-resident enterprises where they come for a small period of time for the installation purpose or for providing any technical support to these non-resident enterprises. So these people make visit to a country for a short period of time. Though they are doing the economic activity in a country, but they will not be considered to be the normal resident. As I told you, he or she should be live in that country for more than 1 year. Apart from this, there are some border workers or the person who cross the border between two countries daily or regularly in order to work in one country, are the resident of the country in which they live, not of the country in which they work. These person who to get the work, they used to cross the borders. Take an example of our borders in India and Bangladesh. So here some people, some workers from Bangladesh, they used to cross the border to get some economic activities, economic work. These people used to cross these boundaries, these borders daily. Though they are working in our country daily or regularly, they will not be considered to be the normal resident. Why? Because though they are working in our country, but they are ordinarily resides in that country, that is in Bangladesh. So at that time, those border workers who used to cross these borders, that workers will be considered to be the normal resident of that country where they are living. And apart from this, the officials, the diplomats and the members of armed forces of a foreign country are treated as the normal resident of that country to which they belong and not of the country in which they are employed. So these peoples can be listed in the non-resident or those people who will not be considered to be the normal resident of a country. Now we will study about the domestic and national concept of national income. That is the domestic income and the national income. So in macroeconomics, the concept of income can be classified as the domestic income and the national income. Both these incomes include all the factors of production. The income earned by all the 4 factors of production. The first one, that is the domestic income, जिसे हम घरेलू आय कहते हैं. Domestic income is the sum total of all the factors of income generated within the domestic territory of a country by the normal resident or the non-resident. So students, here we need to keep in mind that when we are calculating the factor income generated by these all the factors of production, that is the land, labor, capital and the entrepreneur, in the way of rent, compensation of employees, interest and the profit. So when these incomes are being taken together, they can be said to be a domestic income only when they are generated within the domestic territory of a country. And one more thing, these income generated by the normal resident or the non-resident of the country within the domestic territory. So we will look at the concept of domestic territory of a country later on. Now look at the meaning of national income. So when we compare the domestic income with the national income, so national income is the sum total of all factor incomes attributed to the normal resident of a country within the domestic territory of a country or the outside or from the rest of the world. So while getting the value of national income, it will not include only the income generated within the domestic territory, it will also include the income earned from the rest of the world. So students, here we need to make a proper difference between these two concepts of domestic income and the national income. So when we are talking about the domestic income, as I told you, these income are the factory incomes generated within the domestic territory by both normal resident and the non-resident. But when we are talking about the national income will include all the incomes which are being generated within the domestic territory and the rest of the world. After getting the meaning of this domestic income, the national income, we will try to understand the meaning of domestic territory of a country. So which territory can be said to be the domestic territory? Here, when we talk about the domestic territory of a country, generally politically, when we look at the meaning of a territory of a country, it includes the political boundaries of that country. But here, when we are studying the income, that is the domestic income, the national income, at that time, the domestic territory includes not only the political boundary, but it also includes the economic boundary. So what is the economic boundary? So according to the United Nations, economic territory is the geographical territory administered by a government within which person, goods and the capital can be circulated freely. So we can see here where in these economic territories, the movement of persons and the movement of goods and capitals are moved freely or circulated freely. That means what? Here these movements are being controlled, or that geographical territory is being controlled and administered by that country's government. Take an example, embassy. So all that embassy, the consulates, the military establishments of a country which is located abroad. So these institutions or these areas are being controlled by, though they are located in somewhere in the world, somewhere in any other country in the world, but these areas, so these institutions are being controlled by that country's government. Take an example, we have the embassies and consulates in mostly all the countries in the world. So those embassy buildings, the consulate buildings which are situated in other country, that area, that embassy building will be considered to be the domestic territory of our country. Along with that, you can take an example of all the ships, the aircrafts which are being operated by the resident of a country across the world. So all those aircrafts which is being owned by our country, or the shipping vessels which are being operated by our country or by our resident across the world, are said to be the domestic territory of our country. Along with that, the fishing vessels, the oil and natural gas rigs which are operated by our country with right to exploitation across the world, so that can be considered to be the domestic territory of a country. Students, so while calculating the national income, one more thing, as I told you, the concept of domestic territory of a country should be kept in mind, because those income which are being generated outside this area, outside this territory, will not be considered to be the income of our country. So here in the domestic territory of a country, we have the political boundaries, the political frontiers of a country, including the water bodies, the ships, the aircrafts, the fishing vessels, the oil and natural gas rigs which are being operated by the resident of a country across the world will be considered to be the domestic territory of a country. And along with that, all the buildings of the embassy buildings, the consulate buildings and the military establishments which are located in some other country will be said to be the domestic territory of a country. Take an example, if an embassy or the consulate building of America, if it is situated in our country, so at that time, that area, that building will be considered to be the domestic territory of America. At the same time, when we are having our embassy at America, so that building, so that embassy building will be considered to be the domestic territory of our country, domestic territory of India. Why it is being considered to be domestic territory of India? Because that building was completely administered by our government. So while calculating the national income, we need to keep in mind about the concept of domestic territory, so that the income can be included while calculating the national income. So students, so far we have seen two concepts, that is the normal resident of a country and the domestic territory. So once again I want to remind you the concept, where the normal resident means what? Those people, those institution which resides in our country for more than 1 year and whose economic interest lies in our country. And the meaning of domestic territory, these are not the political boundary. Along with the political boundary, those economic territories. So along with the political territory, the economic territories are also taken into consideration while calculating the national income, where these economic territories which are located in across the world, and these economic territories are completely governed and completely administered by that country. So when they are operated and administered by that country, place can be said to be the domestic territory of that country. So students, that's all for today. In the next episode, we will study about the conversion of domestic income to the national income and the national income to the domestic income, and we will study about the other related aggregates of our national income. So until then, keep learning, stay safe. Namaskar.